This is a regular meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019.
Being that it's 7:01, we'll call this meeting to order. The clerk will read the sunshine law.
Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting is required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin board, filed with the Borough Clerk, and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Sheridan.
Here.
Councilman Cooper. Councilman Good.
Here.
Councilwoman Pacheco.
Here.
Councilman Fotopoulos.
Here.
Councilwoman McDermott.
Here.
Dan Kennedy.
Here. As a courtesy for those around you, please silence your cell phones. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you.
One job.
Councilman Sheridan. Okay, at this time we're going to continue on with a public hearing that's carried over from the March 19th meeting. Person-to-person, place-to-place transfer of DTV Pizza Incorporated to Keyport Liquor 3, retail consumption license 1322-007-009 to be located at 25 West Front Street and 17-21 West Front Street. Have a motion to open this to the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Jason Mandia from Stone Mandia on behalf of the applicant. I don't know if you want me to run through everything as last time and repeat it all, but when we were here last time, we went through some of the technical issues that were corrected on the license and resubmitted as per the ABC and objection letter received. There was a question on the notice for the objectors, so we carried the meeting to the hearing to today. Really where it was left off is I went through the license, what that was being sought, the building, the locations, and we came up to Mr. Lane and his objections, and that's where it was left off. So I don't know if we want to bring him up or if you want me to give a reiteration of the background again.
Can you just give a reiteration of the amendments, maybe, that were made to the initial application? Sure.
So in 2.2, it was originally listed as 25 West Front Street, where we're also seeking to use the rooftop at 17-21 West Front Street. Both sketches were attached for the rooftop areas on the original, but we didn't list on the question on 2.2. An additional page 3 was attached, where there was only one initially, so it's broken into two separate buildings now to indicate the licensed areas. The landlords were identified completely on both because there are two different landlords for each, one for each building. So that was corrected. There was a correction on page 7 because a license actually was purchased after this application was submitted and approved. So that license was then added to this application as being disclosed as another license owned by this license holder. I believe that was it. Yes, that was it.
Thank you.
And those were also included in the ABC's comment letter to the application, so they were corrected in accordance with the ABC comment letter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to come forward?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Building on what the applicant indicated, this is, and we're looking at an application dated 3/4/19, which is an amendment to a year-old application that was filed on 12/21/17. The newspaper notices were dated on 2/9/19 and 2/16/19, which required an objection be made immediately to the borough clerk. So, in light of that requirement of immediate objection, I opened a request for the application. And the application I received was the 12/22/17 application. I did not receive the new application because it didn't exist. That resulted in my letter of objection. And all my items in my letter of objection had to do with the 2/22/17 application. I produced a written signed letter of objection. The hearing at the last hearing on 3/19 was the first time it was identified that there was a new application, and we also talked about there was a notice issue. So that's sort of the background. As indicated, a number of items have been cleared up. In addition to ones mentioned here, item 3.8 mortgage holder for building 2 was identified. 3.9 landlord for building 2 was identified. As indicated on the list of liquor licenses was updated because the addition of a liquor license since the original 2017 application, and the date for the newspaper notices was added. So this is all corrections that needed to be made that were identified in my letter of objection. I have a number of questions, though, about the application as it's presently submitted. It indicates that 1721 West Front Street, there's going to be a rooftop deck above the gym. And you have the last page of the application. If you look at that, you'll see that information. The issue is that only part of the roof of 1724 West Front Street is licensed area. And since it's only part of the roof, and it's just identified as the area above the gym, that's really not definitive for a liquor license.
How definitive do you have to be, Mr. Lane?
Well, the experience has been, for example, for the Uptown Bar and Grill, there was a survey.
Mr. Lane, how, based upon the ABC code, how definitive do you have to be? Not based upon any other application.
It says right in the pages on the description in the ordinance, it says if it's not the whole area, there's got to be a sketch that clearly defines the area relative to total.
I think
Where
there's a
are you
mistake
referencing?
here, too. There's a mistake in what he's presenting. We are seeking for the entire rooftop, it's marked in page 3, to be licensed. It is all of it. It's checked yes. And the sketch gives the dimensions of the entire rooftop. So we're not seeking to just do a portion of that rooftop.
No,
Usually, a detailed sketch is required when you're doing a portion so they can delineate the area that's going to be licensed. And that's when they get into a little more detail.
Right, but I'm talking about page 4, or 3.2, where we're talking about the area above the gym.
It's right here.
The area above the gym.
1720, roof
Right.
is checked yes, and all is checked yes.
Right, but that's not all the roof of the building. It's 1729. If you look at the aerial of the building, there's a significant part of the building, rooftop, that is not above the gym.
Where are you seeing it? I'm sorry. I don't see where you're saying above the gym, though. Where's that marked above the gym?
In your last page, your exhibit,
page of the exhibit.
in the last page of your exhibit, it defines the area above the gym. And it states that the size of the area is 100 by 60, where the total rooftop is about 180. And the area above the gym could go away any day. That is not a clear specification of the licensed area.
We, sent in an aerial, actually, of that rooftop. I don't know if I can,
Here's an aerial of the rooftop.
yeah.
That's not in your exhibit, and
It was submitted.
the, didn't come through in any of the documentation I got. Do any members of the council have that aerial?
Can we see it now?
But what has to be on
That's
exhibit,
the rooftop of the gym and also the other building. So those are the two.
Do we have the black rooftop here? Is that what we're looking at, or is it just a?
I don't know what your picture is.
The white rooftop is the area he's talking about, 17
The white is the gym.
21.
This is the gym.
Understood.
So you're looking to have the entire roof of the gym, or that building licensed, is that?
Correct, and if you look at the dimensions, it covers it. If it was a mistake on the handwriting on there, that could be corrected easily. The page 3, that it does apply with it, though, does indicate that the whole area.
Okay.
But we're talking about building 1721, and the building 1721 is more than the area above the gym. And the rooftop is more than the area above the gym for that building.
I'm reading the application to say that it's the entire rooftop.
Right, but it's not, they're not licensing the entire rooftop.
What portion is excluded from?
The front portion
A Family Dollar?
of the area over Family Dollar.
So but the portion is 100 by 60? Is that what we're looking at in the last?
That's the back half of the roof.
Okay, all right.
That's the back half of the roof.
And the exhibit that's attached to the application has the 100 by 60 dimensions of the area?
Right.
Correct, okay.
And the specified area over the gym. Well, the gym could go away any day. So you need.
You don't need official site plans for an ABC application, you just,
You need a sketch showing the whole rooftop and what area is being licensed. So, in this exhibit, is for 1721 West Front Street. That is not the entire rooftop area.
Right. And based on what you're saying, you guys submitted a new diagram.
Pardon?
No, that's the diagram.
That's the
My understanding was that's the entire rooftop area.
It's not. That's the rooftop area above,
it's the licensed area.
that's the licensed area of the rooftop, but it's not the entire rooftop.
If it
So,
happened,
if I'm reading this correctly, the top, where it's first indicated as 60, the diagram, that says waterfront on top. So that would be closer to American Legion Drive.
Right.
And then the base of the diagram says West Front Street. So the entirety of the 60 and then the 100 would include the whole building.
No, the rooftop is 180 feet by 60. And only 100 feet is going to be licensed.
So I would say it concludes, if I was looking at, sorry, mine's on an electronic device, so it's just easier for me to take yours for a second, sorry. The part that's going to be licensed is going to be 60 by 100, correct?
Right.
So the diagram indicates that the waterfront is to the top of the diagram with the space indicated there, which would be parking. Obviously, we're not right out to the water. And then the space that's at the bottom base of the diagram would indicate the Family Dollar area out to West Front Street at the base of the diagram.
That's not shown on the sketch.
I have one other question for you, Mr. Lane, for a point of clarification. You indicated that there was a new application submitted.
Yes.
At the last meeting, it was indicated that it was not a new application, that it was an amended application. So for a matter of clarification for the public sitting here, can we please clarify, council, whether it's an amended application or a new application?
The application was amended to correct the items cited by the ABC and some of the items cited in Mr. Lane's letter.
Thank you.
It is new from the point of view, there's a new date on it, there's a new signature, there's a new sign-off date.
Okay.
But it's all still the same transfer
It's
license number,
considered
right?
it's an amendment.
Okay,
But,
just wanted that for clarification. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lane.
the requirement is that whenever only a portion of the rooftop is gonna be licensed, that there has to be a sketch that delineates that area relative to the whole rooftop. And you'll see that under section, 3.4.
So you're saying that the sketch that says 100 by 60 is not detailed enough?
It doesn't
Say
define the whole rooftop.
I didn't ask you that. I asked, are you saying that 100 by 60 with a square like that is not delineated?
Yes.
Okay. Any other, what's your next point?
Okay. How will patrons access this rooftop at 1724 West Front Street? Are they gonna be able to access it from 25 East Front Street, from American Legion Drive, and stairs in the back of the building?
I
So
don't
what's
There'll be
the
as many
access?
means of
think,
egress.
do they have to provide a site plan yet?
Pardon?
I'm asking the council, do we have to provide a site plan yet?
We don't, and I brought the sections from your local ordinance that show where we have to go for zoning approval still for this. And where that's vetted out, decks, porches, alterations, they all require zoning approval. And we're gonna have to get site plan approval as well, where they vet out all those issues.
Okay.
But my question is, it says that this license is located at 25 East, or West Front. So I'm asking, what are the access paths to access the rooftop on 1721 West Front Street? Will the only access be from 25 West Front?
I think that question is more appropriate for the planning board.
I think it's appropriate for the license. It says the
Well,
license.
I can tell you the
they
access
let-
is gonna come through 25 to get to the roof of 1721. It's just not determined where the stairs or the ingress egresses are gonna be yet.
The central location at 25 West Front.
Correct,
And so the only access will be from 25 West Front.
yes.
And the other means of egress.
And yeah,
By
emergency,
code.
I'm sure there's gonna be
Yeah.
fire escapes required in emergency egress.
But for the patrons to access the restaurant facilities, it'll be solely from 25 West Front.
Correct.
Yes. And it'll of course have to be code compliant, all aspects.
Will this be a year-round facility with a roof, heaters, curtains, windows?
I don't know that that's been decided yet.
It has not been decided yet.
What kind of activities will be involved in this rooftop? Bands, karaoke?
If there is music up top, obviously there'll be a restaurant bar. If any music will be code compliant, it'll conform with any sound ordinances the town has. And that again would be vetted in the zoning and the site plan approval process.
I just remind the council that, when the Bayview bar was open, it created quite a bit of noise on the riverfront. And I think this is something that needs to be considered in the licensing.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon.
Now, 25 West Front, the deck and the back deck. How will patrons access these areas? Only through 25 West Front?
Yes.
Okay. Again, the question is, are these going to be year-round facilities with a roof?
Undetermined at this point.
Undetermined. So you really can't define the building.
Mr. Lane, I think these questions are more appropriate for the land use board and not for license transfer.
Now, the license transfer is supposed to be able to delineate the location of the license.
And that's what the 60 by 100 diagram does. I'm reading the section that you pointed to in the application, 3.4. It says, if only part of any floor is to be licensed, attach a more detailed explanation with sketches to clearly delineate licensed areas from unlicensed areas. The picture that I'm reviewing attached to the amended application clearly delineates a 60 by 100 licensed area as separate from any other area. So my look at that and my interpretation is that that sketch complies with the requirements of this application.
You're talking about, we're back to 1721 West Front now.
Correct.
And the ABC application says when you are only going to license part of the roof, you have to clearly delineate
The licensed area.
the licensed area relative to the total roof.
Doesn't say anything about roofs.
Does it say relative to anything?
It only applies
Licensed,
when only part of the license of
Right,
the area is
licensed,
going to be
unlicensed.
licensed. So how do you define what part is going to be licensed if you don't define the whole roof area?
I see that the 60 by 100, and then there seems to be some sketches of an indication that it extends over.
Depends over what?
The other two sketches are of the proposed second floor deck of 25 and the roof of 25.
The way what I got little lines up here, which I assume is the other part of the roof.
Can I ask a couple of questions just for clarification? Okay, so the 82 by 41 section, which is the first sketch, that's gonna be on top of what is now the bank.
Correct, yes.
Behind the bank is gonna be the deck.
Yes.
The 60 by 100 or 100 by 60 section is gonna be the entirety of what is now the gym roof, excluding Family Dollar. You're not gonna be going on Family Dollar with that.
My understanding was it was the entirety of that roof to be licensed.
Even the Family Dollar?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm gonna ask or bring up the point of that from a planning perspective, I don't know if it'll work, I'd love to see the site plan, but I don't have to because I'm not on the planning board, but, if the planning board says no to this, because you have to go before the planning board for this, it doesn't affect the liquor license application as it stands right now, right?
If there was more than a 60 by 100 area being used up there, we would, or less than a 60 by 100 area, we would have to come back here and amend this.
Okay, so if the planning board, for whatever reason, just hypothetically denies this part of it, right? You would then have to come back?
We would, unfortunately for us, yes, we would have to come back.
You said you want to license the area above the Family Dollar store. What's the total dimensions of the roof at 1721 West Front?
I don't have those dimensions. I have the dimensions of what licensed area is being
All
sought.
right, but the total dimensions of the roof is about 185, right?
I'm not sure that's accurate.
If you look at the zoning, I'm sorry, if you look at the Monmouth County information as to the size of the lot, okay? At 1721 West Front, it's 200 and some feet deep. And it's easy to proportion that that roof is significantly more than 100 feet. The lot size is 60 by 228 feet. 60 by 228 feet. And that building covers almost the full lot. So that roof is significantly more than 100 feet.
So if they're not gonna use the whole roof, does that matter then?
Then they need a sketch. That's not my point.
We've already submitted the sketch of the licensed square footage, the area,
Right.
the 60 by 100.
But you
If
just
we
said you're gonna
went
license.
outside that area, then we'd be in violation of the approval.
Then you just said you're gonna license the whole rooftop. So you're not licensing the whole rooftop.
I haven't seen anything different.
The gym area, actually, and Dennis, you may remember, this project went before the planning board, and they basically were separating the building into two sections, and they got approval for an entrance on American Legion Drive for the back half of the building.
That was just before I got on, I think that's more than 6 years ago.
Right, and the back half of the building is 100 by 60.
Yeah,
But the total roof area is not 100 by 60. And the licensing requirement is very clear that when you're not going to license the whole floor, you have to define the area relative to the whole floor.
and they're not going at how?
The application doesn't say relative, it says delineate the licensed area from the unlicensed area. The sketch
Right.
shows the licensed area.
But it doesn't delineate the unlicensed area.
Well, anything outside of the licensed area by definition is an unlicensed area, isn't that true?
Right.
So we're approving 100 by 60? That's the question?
That's the application.
Adjacent to the property that, adjacent to 25 West Front.
No, you're approving 100 by 60, the back half of the building. And you haven't delineated that that 100 by 60 is in the back half of the building. The statement that above the gym will not hold water for the future. Gym could go away. Matter of fact, is the gym operating now?
Mm-hmm.
Now, a couple other issues. 2.3 talks about when the actual address will be licensed, when the license will be used. So do you have any insight as to when this license was going to be used?
I think there's still a lot of
Yeah,
processes
it's
to
a
have
long
to take
process
place.
that we have to go through, it's hard to estimate that.
Yes.
Just
Is
go
there-
through the whole
is there-
approval process.
Is there a reason you're not asking for a pocket license until the,
Because we want to know that it's approved for that location before going through the whole site plan
Well-
process.
you've got a pocket license approved for Broad, for 6 Broad, and you know that that's where that's going to be located.
Mr. Lane, I think other license approvals, pocket or not, are inapplicable right now to this license transfer.
Well, I suggest the board think about this. You're proposing a license for a building that basically doesn't exist. And has to go before the planning board.
I believe that was the same steps we took for Cottage Inn. When the Cottage Inn property had to have a liquor license sale along with their property, and then they came forward with the site plan and the planning board applications after the liquor license was transferred.
Just so I can clarify something on the record, the building does exist.
Shed.
Standing.
Shed. But I'm saying the site,
Yeah.
the plans weren't all put forward,
Right,
right?
right. It's a little different process if there was no building on a dirt piece of land.
Okay,
We would have to give you a little bit more,
more diagrams,
yeah.
okay. I retract my statement then, but I don't know that it always has to be a matter of preference, that all of the plans have to be in place, because I think you take one step at a time, especially with past practice of, things in Keyport have often taken a long time. So, are there any other objections, from the state of New Jersey that aren't remedied yet, Mr. Lane? I believe they had
Well,
rectified
I
everything that the
think
state
the
asked
board
for.
also ought to give consideration that the applicant is, again, considered pocket license, the applicant is unable to find the trade name. The anticipated date of when the license will be activated, the area to be licensed, again, at 25 West Front Street, it's not the whole roof, I'm sorry, it's 1721, it's not the whole roof, and one other thing, just the mechanical thing you ought to fix, on page 8, the state assigned license number is missing in your application. Yep.
I think it's important to note, Mr. Lane, that before this license can be activated, the applicant will again have to amend the application in order to activate it. It just will not be activated from this transfer.
So you're saying he has to come back before this board?
No, sir. What
No,
she's saying
you would
is
have to
that
file an amended
you
application.
just have to file an amendment to activate the license, so it'll be, if it's approved, it would be cited, but it still has to be activated later. But it would not come back in front of the board unless there was a change to the license area.
Or an objection?
No.
No, that was a change in the license area that would require this. The net is, I recommend that the decision be to make this a pocket license until the plans are, for the building, et cetera, are in place and approved by the planning board. And that we get some perception of what the noise issue is gonna be. Because this building is sitting at a very high elevation with no definition of how the noise is going to be restricted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Yes, I'm still on.
George Wallington, 4 Second Street. It seems the rooftop is two different owners.
Are you talking about 17 and 21, or are you talking about?
Yeah,
25?
17, 21.
And this
The
was-
properties are owned by two different entities. The operator is the same entity for both spaces being proposed, obviously, one licensed entity.
So it wouldn't become an insurance issue?
Excuse
It
me?
wouldn't become an insurance issue?
They would have to insure everything, but there's no insurance issues. The operator insures their areas.
And seating capacity, do we know what that is going to be?
We don't know yet. We're gonna have to go through the site plan process to determine that. And at that point, may put limitations on it, they're gonna dictate what we can have.
And you seem a little irritated tonight, Matt. Everything all right?
Yeah,
Because, it's being filmed.
That's quite all right.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious because you seem a little bit off game tonight. So, with issues that Mr. Lane brought up that weren't filled in, that's all right with the governing body, you're gonna go forth and approve this tonight then? Mayor? Mayor?
Hold on 1 second. Can you just answer that, that there isn't anything that's incomplete, please?
Page 8, is that what you're talking about?
Well, is
the
Mike
license
Lane
number?
brought up issues tonight?
There was one area that he said the license number wasn't written in, so I'm asking.
Top of page 8,
Here, page 8.
it's listed in the middle, but not the top.
It's written everywhere else, so I think that's.
If there's a spot that's supposed to be written in, it doesn't matter, so you just write it in one spot and say, that covers the whole sheet.
It's written on every page, it's not
Is that your direction?
my direction?
Yeah.
The council votes on.
The mayor asked you to answer.
My answer is that I don't think that the missing license number on top of one page of a 10-page application is fatal to the application's completeness. Yes.
And how long you been a lawyer?
7 years.
Mr. Wine, that's not
Can-
necessary.
can I make one
That
comment?
No, it is necessary,
It is
because
not
we're
necessary.
paying this gentleman to represent our town for lawsuits to potentially come down the road.
I
So I'm
understand.
asking him again, what is his
I don't think that that's
qualifications to
necessary.
make a statement like that?
Can I address this question?
In 1 second, sir.
I don't think that's necessary.
No, I do think it's necessary.
I think the
Are you
question
in?
doesn't really.
7
apply
years.
because the-
You're
the
taking my time,
application-
sir? Thank you very much.
It's a public hearing, it's not time.
I know, but you didn't say you could speak, sir. I have the microphone. You called my name up here. This gentleman's not going to talk over top of me. Do I make myself clear?
No, Mr.
Don't threaten me, Mr.
I'm not
Wine.
threatening you. Do I make myself clear? That's not a threat, it's a question.
You asked a question. If
I
you
asked the
want
question to you,
clarify
you
it-
had to talk to him. Now he's making a decision that you don't have to fill in every square on every page, because it's 10 pages, which is BS. So my question is, if you just write it down one time, that covers the whole
No,
document.
that's not the situation.
Mr. Walling, I also don't think he said that, he just said it wasn't, what was the word you used?
Fatal to
It
the.
wasn't fatal to the application.
I can.
Why would the spot be there then?
I can explain to you what
It
happens.
didn't say that it wasn't filled in, just saying it's not fatal to the application.
Why was the spot there then to be asked the question to be filled in?
It was to be filled in.
Right,
But
but it
the
wasn't.
failure to do so is not, that's his advice, is that it's not fatal to the application.
So am I going to hear how long you've been a lawyer, sir?
7 years.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I can answer your question. So when an application gets approved, if it gets approved, it then gets sent to the ABC.
Right.
The ABC reviews it for technical items like that. If there's a problem.
But the
with it-
purpose of an
Can I
application.
finish now?
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
talking on this.
Yes, you
If
can.
there's a problem, they send it back with a note that says what has to be corrected. That's why I'm saying it's not fatal. You just
Right.
have to write it in and send it back to them. It doesn't go for a rehearing.
I know, but we're requiring on this governing body up here to make sure our town doesn't get sued.
I understand. You
So if
gave me
there's
the
a-
right answer.
I don't think it is the right answer. If there's 20 questions, you answer 20 questions. You don't answer 19. You don't answer
I
21.
understand, but sometimes things get overlooked in mistakes that are non-fatal.
Yeah, but
And
we
this is 20
have
years
1,
since that
2,
process
3,
went.
4, 5, 6 people up there, counting the mayor, 7, that are supposed to look at this application and make sure when they sit up there, we're not an embarrassment.
And they've looked at it.
And we're an embarrassment.
I don't think so, because one number was missing. It's not a fatal item on an application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I didn't threaten you.
Are there any other items that are lacking according to, Mr. Lane and also, the ABC, right? Is that the only one
No,
right
the only
now?
other thing Mr. Lane had, took umbrage with was the lack of trade name, but that's not determined yet. And it's not a required until we start operating, if it's operated under a different trade name
Okay.
than the business name.
And it's important to note, follow up on that, Councilman Katopoulos, that all issues that were presented by the state of New Jersey ABC, have been rectified.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And can I mention one other thing? When there are objections to these applications, there has to be some reasonable association to dangers to the public health, safety, general welfare, commonly recognized as incidents of the sale of alcohol. I didn't hear any of those. There are more items unrelated to alcohol that could be related to any application. They seem more like site plan objections and zoning objections than
Thank
anything else to me.
Anyone else from the public? Yes, Mr. Graham?
Elmer Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. Look, I'm just going to simply cut through all the mumbo jumbo on this. As long as, say, the applicant here meets all the criteria, applications in the state of New Jersey and the borough of Keyport, and it's you know, if it helps the business, if it helps out our borough economically and stuff like that, but like I said, as long as they meet all the requirements and regulations and ordinances and stuff like that, then I see nothing wrong with, you know, approving this application eventually down the road and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Anyone else? Is there a motion to close the public?
Actually, can I, I just want to ask a question on the small motion first.
Oh, you wanna ask them?
No, I'm gonna ask
So it might involve the public.
lawyer,
Okay.
lawyers, plural, just to confirm the missing number, oh gosh, I'm sorry. The missing number on page 8, so in order to activate the license, that would have to be amended. So the final version of this would have all of the missing technical errors. Well, that particular one.
Yeah, if that was missed, it would just be slip sheeted in, essentially, is how the ABC handles it. And they would ask us to slip sheet in that number, which we can do before it's sent out. As your board attorney correctly stated, it's not a fatal item on an application.
So in the event that somebody were to be searching for this particular license in the future, that amended version would be the version that they would be able to research or pull up,
Correct.
and all the numbers would be filled in.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And so, you know, the number is on
Yes.
10 other pages. And it's on that page as well, actually, in the middle.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public?
Motion.
Second.
Can I get one in?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Mr. Linky.
I think the key issue that, you know, when I first looked at the application back, it was the 2017 application, most of the errors were, in my letter of objection, were fixed. There's still a few more things to be cleaned up, that's fine. But I think the key issue is for the board to understand, and I didn't hear any questions about, it says there's 3 floors. All those 3 floors plus the roof are gonna be used for restaurant services?
The entirety of the building.
The entirety of the building. But you have no idea of what the capacity is gonna be, or,
No, that was,
and so, then the other issue is, in the building at 1721, the only area that's gonna quote be licensed is the rooftop. But again, the sketch has to delineate what section of the rooftop of the building at 1721 West Front is going to be licensed, and I encourage you to do that before you send it back to ABC in Trenton.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Anyone else? For a motion to close the public?
motion to close the public?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So as this continuation of March 19th meeting, it's a resolution 146-19 authorizing the person-to-person, place-to-place transfer of DTV Pizza Incorporated to Keyport Liquor 3 Incorporated. I would need a motion,
I'll move it.
Second.
and this would require a roll call.
What's the motion? Sorry.
It's the motion authorizing resolution 146-19 to transfer.
Councilman Sheridan.
Yes.
Councilman Cooper.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Yes.
Councilman Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilman Topoulis.
Yes.
Councilwoman McDermott.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation for Alcohol Awareness Month. Health for today, hope for tomorrow. Whereas excessive drinking is responsible for more than 4,300 deaths among underage youth each year, and whereas alcohol is the most commonly used addictive substance in the United States, and whereas more than 1.6 million young people report driving under the influence of alcohol in the past year, and And whereas young people who begin drinking before age 15 are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than those who begin drinking at the age of 21. Whereas drinking by persons under the age of 21 is linked to 189,000 emergency room visits. And whereas the typical American will see 100,000 beer commercials before he or she turns 18. Whereas kids who drink are more likely to be victims of violent crimes, to be involved in alcohol-related traffic crashes, and to have serious school-related problems. And whereas a supportive family environment is associated with lowered rates of alcohol use for adolescents. And whereas kids who have conversations with their parents and learn a lot about the dangers of alcohol and drugs are 50% less likely to use alcohol and drugs than those who do not have such conversations. Now, therefore, I, Colette J. Kennedy, Mayor of Keyport, in conjunction with the Keyport Municipal Alliance to Prevent Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, join the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, and do hereby proclaim that April 2019 is Alcohol Awareness Month in Keyport. As the Mayor of Keyport, I also call upon all citizens, parents, governmental agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Keyport to support efforts that will provide early education about alcoholism and addiction and increase support for individuals and families coping with alcoholism. Through these efforts, together we can provide help for today, hope for tomorrow, for those in our community who are facing challenges with the use of alcohol. Next on the agenda, we're going to be having a presentation by Eagle Scout candidate Colin McTiernan. Please come forward. If you want to sit at the table, if you want to stand, I'll leave it up to you.
Hello. My name is Colin McTiernan. I am currently a Life Scout in Keyport Troop 364. I've been in the scouting program since Tigers. I've come today to present my Eagle Scout project. I have talked with Borough Administrator Mr. Gallo over here last week, and we've come to the idea of using color reflective bands on the fire hydrants to color code them to the respective water pressure for each hydrant. So there's blue, green, orange, and red. This will help the fire department. It'll help the town. It'll give a little bit of color to the fire hydrants. It'll help the fire department in case there was another big fire or any fire. They can easily identify which fire hydrant to use depending on the fire. And the reflective bands would make it easier for people to see if they're biking at night, walking at night, and the fire department to see at all times. So there's currently 128, not counting the red ones, or the ones on 35 and 36 that I would be putting the bands around. That's it. We'll hopefully start in a couple weeks once we get the order in.
It's 128 total?
No, there's over 200 total, but the red ones are already red, and the ones on the highway are not safe for kids to be doing.
I think it's important to note tonight that we have your scout leaders here with you, and also thank Mr. Stephen Gallo for sitting with you. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I know you're a very big advocate of the scouts yourself, and thank you for being willing to amend the project. And we also have Chief Young here tonight, so I just want to make sure that the color banding and all of that kind of stuff is going to be suffice for your fire department.
Yes.
On behalf of the troop, I just would like to thank the governing body for the opportunity to work hand in hand again on another scout project that benefits the community. We are always open to working with the council to make a better tomorrow for our youth and for our community, so we greatly appreciate all of your consideration.
Thank you for doing your part also.
It's our great pleasure.
Colin, looking forward to it. Thank you for taking up this project.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
One quick question, safety vests, you'll be wearing them when you put this on?
Yes, they will be provided.
All right, just because,
Yes, yeah. They
Thank
will be
you.
provided.
Are you going to
Yeah.
be leading a team to do this together with you?
Yeah, so I'll have my Boy Scout troop. I have people from other Boy Scout troops, people from my school who need like volunteer hours, so they're all willing to help. I have adults from my troop. I'll be working, getting in touch and working with the fire department also with their help, so.
That's a great question, Councilman Sheridan. So, Mr. Gallagher, what do we need to do to provide the road safety? Should we put cones out in front of each while they're working?
We'll have a meeting with the police department before the project is launched. I think it's important to point out that the whole essence of an Eagle Scout project is not to do the work yourself. It's to organize the work and motivate a group of people to accomplish a larger task. As Colin had mentioned earlier, the color-coded bands relate to the volume of water that that particular hydrant can deliver to a fire. So it allows the firefighters that much more time to figure out if there's enough water volume to put out a fire. It is a safety issue as well in terms of the reflectivity of the marker on the hydrant. And we're also going to have, the hydrants they all have a code number. That code number will be embossed on the collar itself. So if a collar is put out of service, we'll know which one it is. And we're also going to be working with Colin to geolocate every hydrant so that it can be plotted on a map. And then we'll have that dropped onto our GIS. And one final thing they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking the fire hydrant caps off and cleaning them and lubricating them to make sure they go on and off easily. So they're going to move quickly. They got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Just one last question. When do you expect to complete this?
I each out in May 1st, so I have to get it done before then.
Oh!
Yes.
So this is an all hands on deck
Yeah.
on Easter weekend? Instead of dying Easter eggs, we're gonna be,
Color-coded fire.
I hate to tell you how often this happens, but he'll get it done.
all right. Great, thank you. Just so
Thank
you
you
know,
for having
it's on the consent agenda, so if you wanna stay, we're going on to that next approval, so.
Thank you.
Thanks. Administrators report.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and members of the council on the dais. Citizens here in the chamber, I'll briefly report on some of the activities we've been engaged in since our last meeting, and I'll answer any questions that may arise from the report. Since our last meeting, I had the following meetings. I met with borough officials at a parade planning meeting to ensure that the St. Patrick's Day parade went off without a hitch. We met with officials from the Elks Club regarding their proposed August event, and it's a work in progress in terms of working with them to get what they need to make that a successful event. I attended a meeting of the New Jersey Municipal Management Association, of which I'm a member. I worked with the CFO and the Finance Committee to finalize the budget, and we had a review of it with the Finance Committee. It's up for introduction later on this evening. Along with Mayor Kennedy, I attended the Bay Shore Mayor's meeting, and we had an opportunity to speak with a representative of the governor's office. We did make our pitch over grand for the governor to come to Keyport to visit with us. We'll keep on top of that and see if we can make that happen. I met with a prospective vendor about something they were trying to sell us. I don't remember what it was. I met with Mr. McTiernan, our Eagle Scout candidate. We met with the borough engineers regarding the flood damage prevention ordinance. That would be both Trevor Taylor and Andy Reichel, along with Mike Lane. And we're in the process of tidying up the proposed ordinance, and we hope to have it on for introduction at our next meeting, but I'll circulate a copy of the revision before the meeting. We had a meeting regarding the Neighborhood Preservation Program grant, which is being funded this year for the first time in, I believe, 9 years. Keyport in the past had been successful in getting funding from that program, and we are one of only 3 towns in Monmouth that are eligible. I had a conference call with the governor's representative regarding oyster demonstration projects in the Bay, and I've been working with Councilman Fotopoulos and Councilman Sheridan, as well as the Baykeeper, to see if we can get this back on track and do a project here in the community that would be beneficial to water quality and shoreline protection. We participated in interviews for various positions that we need to fill. I met with the Senior Center Director, participated in the Rec Commission meeting last night, and I had a meeting with the Fire Chief yesterday. With regard to the Beach Park and Beer Street outfall reconstruction project, the contract has been awarded, and Trevor's in the middle of scheduling a pre-construction meeting, which will hopefully happen next week sometime. Benjamin Terry and Veterans Park, the work is continuing on those improvements. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, it looks like it's coming along nicely, and it should really jazz that park, those 2 parks up a little bit. Our construction official is completing his review of the new DPW building plans, and he is going to have a meeting with Trevor to go over any concerns that he might have. On the scattered site redevelopment plan, we've been having conversations with redevelopment council regarding specifically the 75 Manchester property, which is probably the largest parcel in that bundle of properties that we evaluated. So that makes a logical next choice to try and find a developer who may be interested in working on that project. We did rebid the DOT local aid paving project, and we received improved results. The low bid this time around dropped by around $400,000. So we have on our agenda a resolution awarding a contract to BlackRock Enterprises. And the first that's the first phase of a multi-million-dollar paving effort scheduled for this year. We had a meeting scheduled with NJDOT regarding our transportation alternatives streetscape project. That's the project that deals with First Street, Front Street, and Broadway for pedestrian safety improvements. That meeting is scheduled for May 10th, and we'll be working with some concerned citizens from the community who have been following this all along, as well as the consulting engineer to get this project underway. We did receive notification that our local aid award for this year was announced, and Keyport is receiving $325,000. So we're going to merge last year's local aid numbers with this year's local aid numbers to put a large project together and get it out to bid, hopefully that we can complete over the course of the summer. Main Street Park, the design is currently being reviewed by Monmouth County CDBG, and then we can go out to bid with that. We're pressing to have this approval completed soon. We did also complete an application for Green Acres funding as authorized at our last meeting for Jack Conway Park. That has been filed, and once that's approved, we will combine these funds with the county open space grant so that we'll be able to refurbish a park using a majority of grant funds to accomplish that goal. Very quickly on redevelopment, Browns Point is finalizing their CAFR permit, and we finally came to terms on a couple of issues this morning, and they should be finalizing that permit and filing it. Aero Marine, at the last meeting, we de-designated Bushwick Realty as the conditional developer of this property, and we are advising Bushwick and also asking for a copy of their landfill closure plan. I asked for a meeting with Longview Boatworks developer, PRC, to find out what's going on with that project. Mysteriously, a bunch of line bikes appeared in front of the building today. I think they had taken some out for the winter, but they also put them back in, and they refurbished them and cleaned them up a bit, so that program will be back in service. We did have a meeting with the folks at the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority regarding our Complete Streets project, and they are preparing a request for proposals for interested consultants to assist us in drafting our policy, our ordinance, and a demonstration project. The RFP is expected to be on the street by June, but they will send us a draft before it goes out. And I'm trying to schedule a guest speaker to have a Complete Streets meeting about his community's experiences with adopting a policy and putting an ordinance in place, as well as dealing with some severe parking issues that they have in that community. It's a friend of mine who's a planner and the business administrator for the city of Hoboken, a fellow named Steve Marks. He's just trying to come up with a date where we can do that, but hopefully it'll be in the next couple of weeks. We did have a meeting with our Marine and Harbor consultant with the Harbor Commission, and after a discussion, we've decided to work cooperatively to develop a partnership with Monmouth University's Urban Coastal Institute. We reached out for them, we're looking for a meeting to see if they can have some students work with us along working on improvements for our harbor. County dispatch continues to move along without any serious problems. As I mentioned earlier, the flood control ordinance should be ready for introduction at our next meeting. At the next meeting of the Bayshore Regional Mayors Council, I've been asked to talk about shared services, and we're hopeful that we can identify opportunities to work with communities in the region and develop some opportunities for savings. We are still waiting for our fiber optic cable to be installed, which is kind of a linchpin of a lot of changes that we're hoping to make in terms of internet speed and phone service here. I'm told that the engineers from Verizon were here this week and are finalizing the last couple of pieces that have to put into place before the connection is made, and hopefully that can happen within the next week to 10 days. Our engineer is completing his evaluation of library facilities, and hopefully we should have a project estimate for all the repairs that need to be done at the library, and then file a grant as soon as the program opens for the library bond. The budget is on for introduction tonight with a public hearing scheduled for May 7th. Working with the Recreation Commission and the Board of Education for our summer recreation program. And we've also solicited proposals from various groups who would like to provide recreation services to the community. And the closing on that RFP is April 8th. So once we get them all in, we'll have an opportunity to discuss and come up with a robust roster of offerings for the community that hopefully will keep people entertained and interested. And we're putting together our summer movie list, so hopefully I'll finalize that by the end of the week. If anybody has any suggestions, feel free to send them in.
Thank you.
There will not be any Baby Shark movies.
I thought we were doing the commercial before each one, though.
Right, right.
Councilmember Pacheco.
I'll never get this one in my head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Next on to the consent agenda. We'll read the consent agenda.
Resolution 14719 is the payment of bills. Resolution 14819 is the governing body certification of compliance with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's enforcement guidance on the consideration of arrest and conviction records and employment decisions under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Resolution 14919 approves an agreement for grass cutting and lawn maintenance services with JKB. Resolution 15019 authorizes an award of fair and open contract for paving services in association with the NJDOT Municipal Aid Program Grant for year 2017 in the amount of $1,255,137.30. Resolution 15119 urges the NJDEP to conduct a public hearing on the Bay Shore and to extend public comment period for the Williams Nest Pipeline project. Resolution 15219 approves the Eagle Scout Candidates Project to inspect, inventory, tag, and geolocate all fire hydrants located in the borough. That's Colin McTiernan, who we just heard from. Resolution 15319 authorizes the hiring of an equipment operator. That would be Douglas Grandin. Resolution 15419 authorizes the hiring of 4 special law enforcement officers: Justin Eckert, Vito Compel Jr., Mustafa El Said, and they will be SLEO 1s, and Nicholas Scherzinger as a CLEO 2. Resolution 15519 authorizes the Borough Clerk to negotiate a lease for replacement of postage equipment. Resolution 15619 is an emergency temporary appropriation for the 2018 road improvement project.
Thank you. Is there a motion open to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Pacheco.
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. For the council to enter a closed session, the Open Public Meetings Act requires a resolution that states the following. A, the general nature of the subject to be discussed, and B, as precisely as possible, the time when and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session of the public body can be disclosed to the public. Closed session resolution number 248-18 from December 4th, 2018 council meeting fails to mention the parties involved in the potential litigation/settlement talks and the issue that the potential litigation entails. The resolution also fails to specify when the discussions conducted will be disclosed to the public. In addition, to invoke exception 7, quote, the public body must actually be discussing a strategy, the position it will take, the strengths and weaknesses of those positions, and possible settlement. This exception cannot be used as a pretext to discuss aspects of the matter not directly related to the litigation itself, unquote. The draft minutes of this closed session make no mention of litigation whatsoever. This discussion should never have been held in a closed session. Also, the Open Public Meetings Act only allows discussion and not decision-making in closed sessions. It appears it was decided to hold a reorganization meeting at the Central School during the closed session. Why was this discussion and decisions made within a closed session when it is clear that they never should have been?
What was the date you're referencing?
December 4th, 2018. No answer, no comment?
I don't have that information in front of me right now.
I'm trying to
Sorry.
remember if
You haven't approved the minutes yet.
we discussed.
Closed session resolution 83-19 from the January 15, 2019 council meeting does not specify which exception of the law for which the closed session is being entered. It is too vague in describing the general nature of the discussion and does not specify when the discussion is conducted will be disclosed to the public. At the January 22nd, 2019 council meeting, Michael Lane requested what the results were of the above closed sessions in reference to Mystic at Keyport. Steve Gallo responded, quote, "The council has not authorized an acceptance of the public access agreement that was a requirement of the approval," unquote. If Mystic at Keyport submitted a proposed access agreement and the council did not accept it, that is a decision to be made in public session. Why was it not publicly made?
I can answer that if.
Go ahead.
So Mystica Keyport had a planning board approval from, I believe, 2017. That as a condition of the approval, required that the borough accept a public access easement. This was not in front of the board. No, there was no agreement in front of the board because the borough decided to obtain more information as to the specifics for what would be entailed to allow this public access easement. At the January, was it 22nd? That was.
15th was the
15th.
date of the closed session.
At the 15th, the council discussed what the options would be, and I'm characterizing this because they're not released. What the options would be as far as how to proceed, what the process would be for the council to take action on a public access easement, one, and two, what would happen if no action was taken based on the language of the planning board resolution. So those are the two issues that were discussed. We subsequently had a meeting which Mr. Gallo discussed in his business administrator's report. I believe the meeting was in February. We met with a borough engineer, Andy Reichel. His firm, Matrix New World, provides, are they flood engineering?
Marine coastal.
Marine and coastal engineering to the borough. So we met with them, and Andy prepared a report for us to review, us meaning the borough. We have a draft of that report. It's been reviewed. I am in the process of sending a response to the applicant's counsel. I haven't sent it yet because the report I have is marked draft. That's the only reason I haven't sent it yet. So when I have the finalized version of Mr. Reichel's report,
It's my time, thank you.
when I have the finalized version of Mr. Reichel's report, I will communicate with the applicant's counsel, and those minutes will be unredacted and they can be released to you. Don't hold me to this. I hope to have that out this week, hopefully tomorrow. But in short order, that portion of the closed session minutes can be redacted. I just want to communicate with the applicant's attorney first before that information becomes public, because it involves negotiations between the borough, which fall within the exception for closed session.
For a matter of clarification, can you confirm who were in that meeting with Mr. Reichel, because it was not the entire governing body?
It was not. It was myself, William Northgrave, who's an attorney at McMahon, Scotland & Bauman, firm that I work for, Mr. Reichel, Mr. Gallo, and I believe Joe Bauman was in there for a few minutes.
Thank you. Anyone else want?
All of which was characterized in Mr. Gallo's administrator's report in the meeting after we had that meeting. I remember it specifically.
Thank you. And anyone else want to come forward? And it should be duly noted that it's, this particular portion of the public comment is for anything that's on the agenda. Yes, Mr. Lee.
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Under unfinished and new business, what's the process and timeline for posting the new Chapter 25 land use requirements and the subdivision site plan requirements on the borough website under the construction department. What's posted is the ordinance, and the ordinance has multiple copies of the chapter 25 in it, but it's not chapter 25 that's posted. And then you have all the overhead of the ordinance. The same thing is true with the subdivision site plan, and further, the changes, mechanical changes that were talked about during the hearing have not been implemented in the ordinance. Then, on top of that, as I said, and I've mentioned this a couple times before, section 25:1-9, titled GCD and GMCD, that was a big change in the ordinance to separate the general commercial from the general marine commercial, and that's still not completely done.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lane, where is that on the agenda for tonight?
Under new business or unfinished business.
I just want to make sure you weren't referencing an ordinance. Thank you.
Now, the status of the, didn't hear it in the administrative report, but the status of the dumpster enclosures at Keyport Fishery, which sit right across the street from Fireman's Park. Very obvious, very visible. And also, just to, under new business, just input to the council, the planning board meeting on Thursday night, Mystic at Keyport, they removed the condition for the public access at the planning board meeting and put in a condition for an association.
Mr.
Homeowners
Chairman,
association.
that's not an accurate statement. They did not remove the condition for public access. That is a requirement of NJDEP. It still exists. It's required by state statute.
I stand corrected. They removed the condition that the borough participate in public access.
Okay.
I'm sorry, misstated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Mr. Kraft?
Homer Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. A few things. On Resolution 14919, Steve,
Yes, sir.
they're granting what's that, just simply granting?
Every year, we hire a contractor through a competitive quote process to conduct lawn maintenance. They cut grass all over and maintain various growing things around the community. This is a renewal of a long-standing contract.
Okay. Let's see, on Resolution 15019, I think you went over that in your report there, but can you explain it again?
I did. We went out to bid for paving project, and we're awarding a contract with this resolution to the low bidder.
Okay. And of course, hopefully that'll be beneficial to taxpayers in the borough.
We certainly believe it is.
All right.
Their road, and their tires on their vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, Resolution 15519, can you explain that?
We have, rather than put stamps on all of our correspondence, we use a postage machine, and the borough clerk is, the lease that we had was up, so she researched various providers and came up with the best cost-effective method to provide postage, and you have to lease the equipment from them, and that's the subject of this resolution.
Okay, let me ask you something else. What's the latest status on the former Yee Cottage Inn property?
That's a good question. I've inquired several times and have not gotten a response. And just to dovetail with something Mr. Lane brought up, the dumpster enclosures are under enforcement. There have been, a notice of violation has been issued.
Okay, they still have to fix that bulkhead, right?
They do, and what I'm hearing through the grapevine is that that's what they're focusing on now, is repairing the bulkhead before they go ahead with the building. But I'd like to hear that from them.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Hearing none?
Hi, Peter Blair, attorney for Clean Ocean Action. Just want to discuss Resolution 151-19. Thank you for putting that on the agenda and listening to me. I spoke about this at the last meeting. I know I'm going to ask you to do more right now, and that's unfortunate, but it's because the DEP is not going to be extending the comment period or conducting a hearing. We have heard from them. They have a strict deadline of mid-May. So obviously you take this very serious enough that you're considering this resolution in front of you, so I'm just imploring you to consider taking a step further and opposing this pipeline. The comment period ends on April 17th, so for things to be in the administrative record, judging by your calendar, you would need to make that action tonight, and I know that is a big ask. However, this pipeline, as I explained at the last meeting, is extremely serious and very detrimental to the Bayshore community and Keyport. I can answer any questions you have on it. I believe I contacted you all this morning through email explaining this, and my boss, Cindy Ziff, had reached out to Mayor Kennedy.
That is correct. She reached out to me this evening, but I didn't have a chance to further communicate with her, just because of the timing of the meeting. So I think at this point in time, we would move forward with the resolution that we already have prepared, and then we can open the floor for discussion if the council wishes to proceed with something further under new business. But we have a significant items on the agenda that we have to get through, so I think that's a fair conversation under new business, since it wasn't on the agenda to do anything further than a resolution at this time.
Okay.
Anyone else from the public? Can I have a motion to close? All in favor? Any motion to approve consent agenda?
Move it.
Roll call?
Councilman Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jacob?
Yes.
Councilman Patopoulos?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes.
Thank you. Introduction of ordinances, COLA rate ordinance, the clerk reads the ordinance by title.
Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank under NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Can I have a motion to introduce?
I'll move to introduce and request, nicely request, our CFO, Tom, to talk about this.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you.
Wait, hold on 1 second. If we're motioning, we need a second and a
Second.
roll call, and then Mr.
Good.
Coleman. That's okay. And then a roll call to introduce.
Councilman Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilman Patopoulos?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, no problem. The borough, I typically recommend this each year, that the borough adopt this as a matter of course. This ordinance, we don't necessarily need it to adopt our budgets, but it provides flexibility in the future. It does not have to do with the levy cap that most people consider a cap to be, the 2% levy cap, but it has to do with the appropriation cap. And we pass it just so that we have some flexibility in the future, because we don't know if we need it. So it's typical, we pass it every year.
We did the same one last year.
We've done it since the appropriation cap's been in place, and again, it's just for flexibility. You don't know what the future provides,
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Motion to publish.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or aye? Ordinance number 2, vacation of roadway easement. The clerk will read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance vacating a roadway easement across portions of Block 21, and that's been amended to be lots 6, 8, 10, and 11 pursuant to NJSA 40:67-1 et cetera.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Can you just confirm what lots that was again? Because
6, 8, 10, and 11, that's in your amended ordinance that was provided.
Can we just, hold on 1 second. So sorry. On the agenda, it needs to be corrected also, so for matter of record, can we correct, I know you put it in the, you're saying you put it in the amended packet, but on the actual amended agenda, can we have that corrected on there also, please? Yes, Councilman Good, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Before we introduce this, I got the question as to why the language about the quitclaim deed is in here. About other documents, it seems like we're intimating that there's a deed to this property and that somehow the borough is in possession of it.
I'll defer to the council.
Yes, so there's the language is in there basically because generally roadway vacations involve a public right, vacating
Vacating right of way.
a right of way that the borough has an interest in, or the municipality has an interest in. In this instance, it's a roadway right of way that goes across private property. I'm guessing there was issues with the title report. I don't know what the property owner's plans are, but I'm assuming he obtained a title report showing that this right of way is on there. So in the
No, I understand the right of way is on there. That's not, it's a paper street. What my question is, if there is a question as to a title report, where's the title report? Did we get a title report or?
We received the request from the property owner to extinguish this road easement.
So this,
The fact of the matter is the easement exists and it serves no purpose, we have no interest in it.
Oh, I understand that. I just, the language in here is much too broad, at least in my opinion, for vacating a paper street. If we're gonna vacate it, we're gonna vacate it, but to the extent that there is some kind of property that may or may not be owned by the borough, that's a different question than vacating a right-of-way. It's not vacating a right-of-way if we're selling the property.
We've been through this before, I have no reason to believe that we have any ownership interest in this property. It is merely on our tax maps, and it is owned entirely by one owner who is seeking to sell the property, and this has come up.
so just to explain, the reason the language is included is, I haven't seen the title report. I wanted to include, and I understand that we may want to delete this language, but I'm just giving you the reasoning. I included it in the event that the title report showed that there was some public easement rights that, in order to clear title for the current property owner, we had to take the borough had to take some action in order to clear that up for him, in conjunction with the vacation ordinance being recorded. It's the only reason I included it. I know nothing about whether it's going to be required for the borough to take that action, but I just wanted to make sure it was in there in the event that we had to.
No, I understand. I believe that it's a little too broad for what we're gonna do. If we're vacating an easement, public right-of-way, then that's what we do, and that's the official action that needs to be taken. If the property owner's gonna come back to us and say, hey, wait a minute, you actually own the property, because then it wouldn't be vacating public right-of-way, we'd be selling the property to them, then that's a different story. Then we're gonna have to get it appraised and all that. I don't believe that it's true, but, the language is a little too broad for what we're gonna do here.
Mr. Howell, can you explain a little bit more what this is actually all about, just for the members of the public that are here?
It appears as if at one point there was a roadway that traversed several lots that are owned by Hans Peterson and Sons, and long ago, the business enterprise at that location assumed control of that roadway easement, and it does not exist today. There's no way to access it, and in fact, on one end of the roadway easement, lot 6 is a private lot. It's not accessible, and as everyone knows, the Petersons are seeking to sell the property, and it's important to them that this issue be resolved so that they can move forward. I certainly understand Councilman Good's concerns about us giving away something that we own of value, but I have no reason to believe that we ever had an ownership interest in this. I see Mr. Peterson is here in the chamber. Perhaps he can respond to that question.
Is anyone opposed to me?
No.
Mr. Peterson, do you mind just clarifying?
Wade Peterson, 228 Main Street, Hans Peterson and Sons. We are in the process right now of selling the marina. And we have a gentleman who wants to buy the property, wants to continue to run it as a marina, wants to invest a sizable amount of money in it. But when it came back for the title search, it came back with the paper street, which, if you look at it, runs off of Broadway between two houses, and then goes off onto our property, and then the lines, if you look at the surveys, they sort of disappear. Our buyer is, he's concerned that there's a right-of-way on the property. It's never been used by the borough. We've been paying taxes on it for probably 50-plus years. It's on our deeds, and it's just something we'd like to clear up.
Mr. Peterson, former councilman.
Former councilman, yeah. Thank God I'm sitting in the back saying I'm glad I'm not up there.
Lot 6, right, is always, I've always seen that as sort of like a pseudo backdoor access to where your marina, right?
Right, that's between the old Zuback house and the apartment.
And you said you've been paying taxes on that lot in particular?
We've been paying taxes on that lot also.
That would be the only lot that I would have any concern about. If you've been paying taxes on it, then...
Well, actually, we're not really interested in that piece between the two houses, because that's the only access they have for their garages.
Right, so are we, and now, if I can ask now, as a method here, are we also vacating or the right-of-way there, lot 6? Is that included?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
And just to clarify one thing, Mr. Peterson owns lot 6 as well as the portions of 8, 10, and 11 that are under discussion.
Okay.
While we certainly appreciate that he paid taxes on them, he needs to pay taxes on them because he owns them.
Of course. Of course. It's just a matter of what, well, that proves more that he owns the property.
Correct, yes.
That was one of my points. Okay.
Our interest is not really in that little section between Broadway and the fence.
And you would deal privately with the other property owners, obviously, to rectify that situation. I mean, forget about it, forget that question, because that has nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish.
No, we're just trying to clear up the main bulk of the property.
I got you.
I'm very excited also, sidebar, to hear that it's going to potentially be another marina.
And he's got a lot of money to put into it,
Yep.
and we're pretty happy about it.
All right, so I'm gonna defer back to Councilman Good's original question. How would you suggest we rectify this that would meet your satisfaction, or would you rather?
Oh, no, I got no problem if we delete section 3 though, because this is, we've, majority of this council has been through vacating the street. It's just an ordinance, it's passing an ordinance saying that there's no longer any public need of this right of way, and we just, by ordinance, release it. There's really kind of nothing for the business administrator and or the mayor to do, other than the mayor executing the ordinance. So if we just delete 3, we introduce the ordinance, we bring it up next time, pass it, and ta-da.
Okay with that, Council, are you okay with that?
Steve?
Yes.
You good with that?
Yes. I'm fine.
Okay, so, let me just go back to the page. Hold on a second.
Can we motion to, I'm sorry, Mayor, can we motion to introduce?
That's where we're
Amended?
getting to.
It doesn't,
Okay.
it doesn't substantially change we haven't introduced, we're
We already
introducing it.
We're introducing it, we didn't yet, that's.
We haven't actually yet.
Oh, that's even better.
Have we?
No,
Do we have to renumber everything?
Yeah, I thought we
don't
did.
skip the 8?
No, we didn't.
Great. So, I would like to have a motion to introduce restricting item number 3 from the proposed ordinance.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pacheco?
Yes.
Councilman Papadopoulos?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes.
Motion published.
Second.
Wow.
Trying to move things around.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, council, and you should be all put up for sainthood. I sat there for 9 years and I don't know how you do it.
Following your footsteps. We have an introduction to the 2019 municipal budget resolution, R-157-19, introducing the 2019 municipal budget. The clerk's going to read the budget by title, and then I have a question before we go on.
2019 municipal budget of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth for the year 2019.
I have a question prior to us, one thing is, it says off, and so that's supposed to be motion. Okay. Since Mr. Fallon's here and he's a phenomenal CFO, and Mr. Gallo has worked very hard, I think it's also important to point out that there's several reasons why we're able to keep our municipal budget at what it is, and that's due to the efforts of also our Millennium grant writers who help bring in several $100,000s a year to help, so that we don't have to use taxpayer money to take on a lot of the projects that we've been doing, as well as our volunteer emergency services, where if we had paid services, our tax rate would be significantly higher. So, with that said, I just have a question on a couple things before we introduce it, and that is under DPW, there is a $15,000 line item for Community Services Act. I'm not sure what that is.
Community Services Act is an act that requires municipalities to provide services to qualified private communities, and we do have a few in town, and some have contacted us looking for reimbursement for certain services. So we're providing some appropriation in the budget for that.
So that's all new, right? We didn't have that before.
That is correct, that's new.
And then Mr. Fotopoulos, Councilman Fotopoulos, I received your email today. Did you want to further communicate that so that?
I'll wait for public comment next time.
Okay.
Unless you really want me to, I can do that too, but.
It's up to you. I just wanted to offer that to you, if you wanted to discuss it. Okay, so can I have a motion to introduce?
Move it.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Councilman Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilman Jacob?
Yes.
Councilman Fotopoulos?
Yes.
Councilman McDermott?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to publish?
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Communications by consent.
Before you proceed, Madam Chairman, just want to point out that the draft budget will be posted on the website, and copies will be available for the public that would like to receive them, and certainly can answer any questions as they may have.
Having a hearing on May 7th. Yeah, just mention that there'll be a public hearing on the budget on May 7th.
Thank you for clarifying that. Communications by consent, they are listed there. I'm gonna defer to the council if they want them read individually, or are you okay with the fact that they were all listed and we can motion to receive the communications?
Mayor, can you just read number 7? Only because that's going to happen this Saturday.
Sure. Emails from Recreation Committee regarding annual Easter egg hunt to be held Saturday, April 6th, requesting road closure from 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., access to electricity, extra garbage cans, folding tables and chairs by 10 a.m., and picnic tables by 10 a.m.
Do we assume by this that we're letting the police chief know and DPW?
Yes.
That we will have a pre-event meeting with those departments. DPW's already has everything in place, and I will be reviewing this.
Okay, and you're ensuring sunshine?
I don't know about that. It looks good.
A little cloudy, so there's no sunburn. You don't want the chocolate and the eggs to melt.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, I wonder if we could remove number 6 for separate consideration.
Sure. So with that said, if there's no further comments from the dais, if we can get an approval for communications by consent, restricting number 6 until further discussion.
Motion for
Yeah.
everything except 6.
All-
Sorry.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so if we can go back to communication number 6, just a request for use of borough property, senior center from the Keyport Art Society for the purpose of painting classes for its members to be held April to December 2019 from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Further requesting a waiver of fees due to being a nonprofit organization, certificate of insurance is included. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Gallo for further commentary on this because I know there's been several
Sure.
comments back and forth on
This is a request for an approval that has been done in the past. Personally, I was under the impression that this was the organization providing a benefit to the community in the form of art lessons for anybody who wanted them. It was only this year that I was made aware of the fact that it's essentially private and exclusive only to their members. So prior to the council approving such a request, I thought it was important that you were aware of that condition, that the request is to use a public facility so they can provide a service to their members, not to the entire community.
I guess the other thing is that this is also something we're trying to offer with the new recreation assignments, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Steve, have you done any negotiation with them?
We have not, no.
Can we, I mean, instead of doing an up or down, yes or no answer, maybe make them aware of what the concern is?
I first wanted to make sure that it was a concern. And
Yeah, I don't have a concern, but if the borough does, if the council does, then I would ask, we don't decide on it, but
we
I
can-
don't have a concern
Yeah.
personally.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know that we put out RFPs for exactly this type of thing. Has the
Yes.
Art Society come back and said,
The deadline is the 8th. I have not heard any inquiry from them. But it does, I'm seeking guidance from the governing body because it's a slippery slope. I mean, if one group wants to use a public facility for a private purpose, what do we do with the next one that wants to do it, or the next one after that? And, you know, so we really should have some guidance in terms of what is allowed versus what is not.
And who goes in and I know it's been done in the past, I just wasn't that involved in it.
I'm not sure, but I think they have their own key, you know? I'm not sure about that.
They have their own key?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not certain, but
Is there a possibility that maybe yourself, myself, maybe Councilman Fotopoulos, and so there is
Sure.
a liaison to this, if you're interested in it with myself and Mr. Gallo, and Mr. Fotopoulos, to maybe let's sit down on top of them and see what we can do to better streamline it for them, or to have a collaborative effort and tie it together with what we already have out for an RFP and see how maybe we can
Sure.
strengthen that as an entity together.
Would you like a motion to table it?
Yes.
motion table?
Second.
I think it's,
Send it to where you said.
yeah, I think it's,
Forward to,
hopefully
Probably we'll have
we
a
should have a
conversation.
resolution prior to the next meeting.
to get more information.
So it's not a no for the
Right.
record,
no,
it's
no, I
just
just think that,
to collaborate a little differently.
you know, I think that there's that opportunity there that we're not.
Table for collaboration.
Sure.
Who's
Councilman,
me, the mayor, and who?
Councilman Cooper has a question, so.
Councilman Cooper's the liaison to the senior center.
Thank you for reminding me that. I just thought I'd just get voted out.
No, I was sorry, I was going with the Art Society, I'm sorry, Councilman Cooper.
Okay, question, that's a pay-for-business organization that's releasing the operation, right?
I believe it's a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit,
Yeah.
but they have for their members only,
That's what we found out, yeah,
and they're charging their members a fee.
they do.
How much is this town getting out of this?
Well, they're asking for the fees to be waived to use the facility.
In other words, they're gonna, charge their members, and they're gonna make a profit off it.
There is a fee to become a member. I don't know if they charge them to go to these classes.
But, excuse me, I haven't finished yet. All right, now the thing I find rather offensive to me, if it's a nonprofit and they're making $1 out of it, and the township is giving them the use of our facilities, and nobody's being reimbursed for it except for that organization. What kind of sense does that make?
That's why we have it before you, sir.
Well, I don't know what anyone else thinks, but as far as I'm concerned, unless we get some sort of definition of our cost and effect, I would be against it.
Understood. I think we have some more information that we need to gather, and, you know, if they're providing a service to the community, that's great, that would be one thing. But let's see what we can work out with them.
Well, when you're providing a service to the community, I know I'm beating a dead horse. We provide all kinds of services to the community. We don't charge the town a dime.
Right.
Everything we got comes in one door, goes out another. We provide all sorts of services, and on all the anti-hunger coalition information I get, bring back to the town and furnish it to them, to the people that are in need. I'm not doing anybody a favor, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, no more, no less. And I'm not bankrupting the town by doing it. And I take offense when someone wants to come out there and get a ride on the same parade as all the other good volunteers of this town is doing in charge of fees. That's all I have to say.
May I speak?
Thank you. Yeah.
With respect to Councilman Cooper, I do understand his point and his concern, but I would argue that the Art Society of Keyport has provided an inordinate amount of service to the borough for free in many cases, and you know, I brought the benches up before. I brought the butterflies up that beautify the downtown when that was there. I bring up the effort to bring a world-renowned mosaic artist into the town to create a piece of art that was, you know, destroyed by Sandy, but it provided the foundation and the precipice for what we see down at the waterfront today. You know, if we put it into a microcosm and we look at this particular instance, sure, it looks like, you know, they're asking for something that maybe they should pay a little bit for, because there's other volunteer organizations and nonprofits that do the same, but I don't think it was the intent of Councilman Cooper to do so, but I want to make clear that, in fact, the Art Society of Keyport has provided a good service to the borough. And that's why I think I'm looking forward to speaking with Councilman Cooper, the mayor, business administrator Gallo, about how we might be able to come to an amicable solution, or as the mayor put it, a cooperative solution, to provide them with what they need to do this class.
Just want to make sure that we understand, just to bring this back, because getting to a substantive discussion, really, I think we're just tabling it to get more information.
I just wanted to respond.
So can I have a motion to table? I think there was a motion, I don't know if there was a second to that. So can we re-motion?
Motion to table.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have approval for minutes of November 27th, 2018, as well as December 4th, 2018. Oh, never mind, one was a community meeting, we can't do them together. Sorry. So, November 27th, 2018, special community meeting.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a motion to,
I have to.
two abstentions.
Which meeting was on November?
December 4th, 2018, work session.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained?
Aye.
Anyone on the dais have any new business?
Yes, Mayor, first of all, I'd like to remind everybody that there's a beach cleanup Saturday, April 15th, Clean Ocean Action, 9 o'clock.
That's my understanding.
9.
9 o'clock at Cedar Street Park. It's always well attended, and it's always necessary. Twice a year, please come out. And secondly, I'd like to make a resolution against the gas line.
I second.
I
Or is it a motion, or?
well, I just, my
piece is, they're gonna interrupt the floor bed, and the floor bed has been proven to be radioactive, contaminated, all kinds of stuff. Once you put a pipe through there, you put all that debris into the water, and then that affects us. That affects us through fishing, that affects us, that washes up on our shores. This gas just goes over to New York. It doesn't help New Jersey at all. It doesn't, it's not a good fit for New Jersey. Not only do I want it to push back so that we could have a public hearing here in Monmouth County at least, but I don't want it at all.
Madam Chairwoman? So, it's like magic.
As, just to comment, council did circulate a synopsis of the issue to the members of the governing body, and just so happens that Mr. Opal has in his back pocket a resolution doing exactly what you'd like him to do.
So, just a little background, as Borough Administrator Gallo indicated, we did attend the Bay Shore Mayor's meeting together a couple weeks ago, and there was an attorney there from Clean Ocean Action who was added onto the agenda, which was a pretty lengthy dinner agenda already, but
Scallops were delicious.
They were concerned that the public hearing wasn't going to be heard, so they did offer a couple suggestions on how we can handle things. So, thank you, Mr. Gallo, for being open to the different dialogues that we've had about it, how to move forward, as well as Mr. Opal. I know in a little bit of a seesaw, we were hoping we would get a public hearing out of it, hence why we moved forward with getting the resolution on the agenda to encourage a public hearing. But now that we're down to the wire, I don't know that that's the avenue we're going to that the state is going to, NJDEP technically is going to pursue. And I know the Coastal Way is passionate, I think, for every member of the dais. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Opal. But being that this wasn't on the agenda, I will, being advised that I should read it publicly. So I'll take a moment and read that, and then you guys can do as you wish with the suggested proposed resolution, which would be Resolution 157-19, resolution opposing the Williams-Nice-Raritan Bay Pipeline. Oh, I didn't change the agenda, I apologize. 158-19. Whereas the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, is a public body, corporate and politic of the state of New Jersey. Whereas Transcontinental Gas Pipeline Company, LLC, a subsidiary of William Partners, LP, is proposing Northeast Supply Enhancement, later referred to as NECE project, to build 23.4-mile methane natural gas pipeline through Raritan Bay and Lower New York Bay to Rockaway, New York. Whereas the purpose of the proposed project is to transport methane natural gas extracted through the process of hydraulic fracturing from the Marcellus Shale of New York, and whereas the project does not serve the interests of the state of New Jersey or its residents, it will only supply methane natural gas to Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, New York. Whereas the William NECE pipeline could negatively impact the Raritan and Lower New York bays by disturbing the seabed of the Raritan Bay, potentially discharging drilling fluid and chemicals into the bay, and potentially affecting over 1,000 acres of habitat that house marine fish, shellfish, and larvae. And whereas the project poses concerns related to environmental harm to marine and coastal ecosystems, as well as negative impacts to the safety, health, and well-being of bayshore coastal communities. And whereas the Williams NECE pipeline may impact marine life and fisheries through decreased water quality and loud sounds and powerful vibrations that accompany pipeline development, which will impact migration patterns and other important biological processes. And whereas the William NECE pipeline will have significant upstream environmental impacts that could directly harm the Raritan Bay, negatively affecting 41 acres of wetlands, including approximately 20 acres of forest wetland. And whereas the Williams NECE pipeline could adversely impact industries important to New Jersey bayshore communities, disturb commercial and recreational fishing and shellfishing activities, and potentially damage the tourism industry. Whereas despite being directly directly affected from the proposed William NECE pipeline, there has been no public hearing within the Bay Shore. And whereas the Williams NECE pipeline could cause damage to the climate through increased emissions of methane and carbon dioxide. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport as follows. The Borough hereby opposes the construction of the installation of 23.4-mile methane natural gas pipeline through Raritan Bay. The Borough urges the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to deny any permit application for the project and any other pipeline, and urges its representatives of the New Jersey legislature as well as Governor of New Jersey to oppose this pipeline application. That a copy of this resolution be certified and forwarded to Governor of the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner, Catherine McCabe, the President of New Jersey State Senate, the Speaker of the General Assembly, the Monmouth County Legislative Delegation, the New Jersey League of Municipalities, the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders, Clean Ocean Action of New York and New Jersey Baykeeper. I'm not sure if you want to open it to the public to bring legal counsel back up for any further commentary, or if this would suffice. So if we want to bring them back up, we would need to open that for this part.
I'll make a motion to open to the public.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So this particular public portion is regarding this resolution only because we did not have this on the agenda, and then we'll go back to the other public later. Did Mr. Kelsey?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. Isn't the borough interested in dredging Keyport Harbor, the channel? Is that true? Isn't that a project that is being pursued by the borough?
Yes. It is something that we would like to accomplish, yes.
And didn't the council pass a resolution extending the franchise for New Jersey Natural Gas and Keyport last council meeting?
We did.
And doesn't that franchise agreement also allow the expansion of the natural gas network in Keyport?
I don't believe it would go into the waterways though.
They're two entirely separate companies too, by the way.
I understand, I'm making a point. It seems when it comes to the borough of Keyport, where this council can make real change and have real consequences with their decision, they're acting in opposite of what seems to be what this resolution is about. So I would like maybe some commentary why when in Keyport this comes up for decision or discussion, disturbing the bay and all that sediment is okay, but when it's for somebody else that's not with Keyport, it's not okay.
Well, first of all, okay, dredging of the harbor would be done in complete compliance with DEP regulations. If there are hot spots, if there are contamination, they wouldn't be disturbed, okay? You're getting a little ahead of yourself here. This is a proposal to dredge the harbor. The harbor needs to be dredged. Are you suggesting that we don't do it?
The council seems to be acting on the grounds that this will be damaging to the environment. And if the sediment throughout the bay is contaminated, which is what I believe I heard from the Clean Ocean Action last session.
As a matter of fact, I don't think that that's specific to Keyport in our harbor directly. I've read some of the documents put out by Clean Ocean Action and other organizations, and they specifically cite that the path of the proposed pipeline is laden with contaminated soils.
Well,
I don't know what's in the harbor, and you can be assured that before any action that would be taken by Keyport to dredge the harbor, we would make sure that there wouldn't be any environmental impacts that would be adverse to our community.
Well, I can't imagine if the argument is that the pollution from the various estuaries that pour into the Raritan would only limit the contamination to the area of the pipeline being proposed across the bay. I think there's an issue. You know, I think I've made it clear. I think it's a little hypocritical. You can make real impact in Keyport as far as the environment, and I don't see how you're doing so to move it forward for all the reasons talked about that are against this pipeline, the natural gas. I mean, does anybody here not heat their home with natural gas?
On this dais or in the town of Keyport?
On the dais. You know, I think take that into consideration. You can certainly limit the expansion of the pipelines and the natural gas service in Keyport. You can mandate new buildings to use renewable only, electric only. There's stuff you can do to advance that agenda in Keyport and be effective. And whether or not you pass this resolution, which you probably will, I think will have a very small impact on the larger issue at hand that you purport to be trying to advance,
Which is what?
to prevent environmental damage.
So you're
To
saying that,
Keyport.
so you're saying that New Jersey Natural Gas coming in and fixing their pipes that lay under our roads, by fixing them, that's not helping against environmental impact? You say that's
No.
good or bad?
That's not what I said at all.
Yes, you did.
No,
You
I
said that.
specifically mentioned the expansion of the network, which was
Where are
allowed.
we expanding in the network in Keyport? We're pretty much built out.
Aero
Where are we expanding?
Marine, which
Which is
very
not
large
being developed right
proposals
now.
for development. Browns Point, are
Is
they
it
gonna
being
use
developed?
natural gas?
You got to take that up in front of the planning board.
Well, that's the issue I'm bringing up. You can certainly limit new building to prevent natural gas expansion. It's possible. And I'm just making a distinction that when it affects somebody else, no way, we're not getting a benefit, so we don't want it. But when it's here, go ahead, tear everything up.
You asked for commentary, so I'm gonna give you mine. Or not.
No, I'll listen. I'm just not, I'm done
Okay.
responding, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I think when we talk about the natural gas expansion in town, it's to improve the gas lines, which was indicated on the left side of the dais a few minutes ago, and to repair the pipelines that we have. And as you said, they're nearly a majority of the town is heated by natural gas, and there are a lot of home construction projects going on to rehab a lot of homes which were previously heated by oil. So in order for us to continue that gas line to feed us with natural gas as opposed to oil in town, I do believe that there isn't an issue with that, and that's not hurting our town, that's removing the oil heating.
Does everybody understand why they want to put the gas line across the bay? It's to replace coal and heavy fuel oil in New York City and Long Island that are killing people today.
I understand, and I just
So
remember.
all this does affect a lot of people,
I agree,
and
but that's why
there's long-term problems.
at the beginning, we wanted to have a public hearing, which is what we originally put on the agenda, was for a resolution for the NGDP to give the Bay Shore residents access to a public hearing, so they could hear both sides. They shut that option down today. So we went with a further extreme because we no longer are allowed to have a public hearing.
I understand it.
So we
The borough
weren't
may
going
take
to
what
go
our
that
position,
far.
but I would like to see more action in Keyport to achieve the same goals.
Can I just say something? I do agree with them. When we do new developments, I think we have to be also what we call green friendly conscious. So that's part of the planning board, zoning, whatever that is. So there is a fine line between that. And there is a partnership you have to have with the gas lines for conversions from oil and also other ways of changing over. It is a very difficult situation. I don't think I would ideally would not want this to happen. But I also understand that the other side of it, that New York does need this. But the damage it's gonna cause to dredge that is gonna end up here. All the water studies are saying that. And it is gonna have significant impact here regarding the safety of the water itself, the marine. And as part of our Harbor Commission liaison, I will say, we will always make sure that the water and the property itself and everything else is protected in line with those, whatever the compliance laws allow. So there's a partnership there with the council and with the Harbor Commission and whatever entities are gonna go with that to protect the citizens of Keyport and anyone else who comes along and enjoys the waterfront. So, I mean, it's a fine balance, and I know it's a very difficult situation, because I know I have many relatives on that side of the state too. But the way it's being done without the ability for us to even advocate and get that perspective in here is causing this action to be done.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I have I guess a technical question. So I actually have a little concern about voting on an ordinance that I haven't really had a chance to quite comprehend, but I understand that we have time constraints. We have an April 16th council meeting. If we put this on the consent agenda then and then subsequently pass it or don't pass it, would that still meet the requirement to have commentary in by the 17th?
I just want to clarify also that it's a resolution, not an ordinance, just for matter of record. No, it's fine, you didn't see it, so I just want to
Yeah,
clarify.
that's my concern, is that I haven't really had a chance to digest it. You know, I don't think anybody here is arguing that we have to dredge the harbor. I do also understand Mr. Kelsey's concerns. And while I was all for let's have a public hearing, let's talk about this, let's figure out the happy medium, I'm not so sure that I'm ready to pass a resolution tonight that I haven't really had a chance to digest yet. But I also understand that there's a time constraint attached to this.
I think part of that resolution is to mail to the governor, to all the DEP, to all the officials at the last part of that resolution, I do believe. And if you put it on for the 16th and have it approved there, you're not gonna have the time to mail it to them, for them to read it. So I think it's imperative that we take care of this evening.
Can I read it?
Of course. Thank you. Mr. Lane?
I want to encourage you to pass this resolution this evening. The side effects of dredging 1,900,000 tons of the muck off Raritan Bay in the area where the Raritan River and Arthur Kills spilled Superfund site toxins into the water needs to be done. I just posted to the NJDEP today a set of petitions signed, stating very clearly the opposition of all the signers to this gas pipeline. And what's interesting is the address at the NJDEP that these petitions had to go to was the Bureau of Inland Regulations, not the coastal regulations. And so there's been no consideration of the coastal regulations. I went to the meeting up in South Brunswick, and this muck will have significant impact on our water quality and our use and all the investment we're making in our beaches and our water facilities. And the people who signed these petitions were Keyport residents and users of Keyport Harbor. These petitions were signed by a number of the signatures came from the Environmental Commission meeting. A number of the signatures came from a special meeting at the Keyport Yacht Club, all users of our waterfront. And I encourage you not to hesitate 1 second to get this resolution on the governor's hands. And what I can't understand how it's even being considered. When you think about the Matawan Creek Bridge project, how many months was it delayed because it might affect spawning?
That's true.
Just think about that. My kids and I, we go out and seine on the beach behind my house. The bay is alive. We're going to kill it. And I ask you, don't even hesitate for 1 second. Get this resolution in place. Get it in the governor's hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Mr. Graham?
Elmer Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. I definitely agree with you all on this resolution. It doesn't benefit Keyport, it doesn't benefit the state of New Jersey, and it's, you know, it's going to do some damage to the environment here. Now, of course, I keep raising this about the governor coming here for a town hall. If you did have him here for this town hall meeting, that would be nice if you just gave him this resolution personally to express your opposition and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
I applaud your optimism, Elmer, but you're still trying.
I'm working on it.
Peter Blair, Clean Ocean Action. thank you for introducing this and understanding the time constraint. I understand how frustrating it is that the NJ DEP is not going to be conducting a public hearing in the Bay Shore. We're pretty shocked that they went ahead with this and are not going to be extending the public comment period. Clean Ocean Action will be hosting a citizens hearing where we will essentially be playing the role of the DEP, taking public comment, getting it transcribed and submitting it to them before the 17th deadline, so just wanted to put that out there.
I'm sorry, you're going to be having a hearing, a public commentary when?
It will be April 10th at the location to be determined tomorrow morning with the
Is there any way that are you guys going to make flyers up for that so that we can circulate that? Could that be?
Yes, we will gladly forward that to you.
Thank you.
Just on some of the issues that were brought up, I am from New York, so I can say this. There was a time where they needed more natural gas, that is not now. There was a report by 350 Brooklyn that calls into question whether this project is even necessary. So I understand the concern over, natural gas is a bridge source, apparently. I don't fully buy that, but I understand the argument that, it could be useful and, there is a benefit to the project, but there is absolutely not. I can send you that 350 Brooklyn report. It's emphatic. All the oil conversions have been done. There's 342 left to be converted, which doesn't add up to 400,000 decatherms a day. This is a lose-lose-lose for New Jersey. New York is fighting this. They do not need it. It is just absolutely ridiculous. You will not be alone in passing a resolution in opposition. Currently, Aberdeen, Union Beach, and Hazlet have passed opposition resolutions, and we have Highlands set later this week. It is on their agenda for an opposition. We're meeting with the Monmouth County freeholders tomorrow to discuss them possibly passing one at their meeting tomorrow. Rumson, Homedale, and Atlantic Highlands have also considered this. They have meetings next week, and we're optimistic that they will put it on the agenda. I will answer any questions you have about the impacts. If you need that, but I urge you to pass this tonight. And on the timeline issue, I do not think you have the turnaround to get this done by the 17th if you table this forward to the 16th. It does need to be in by 5 p.m. at the 17th for it to be on the record.
I believe Councilman Staples had a question.
Thanks, Mayor, for that. I'd love to see the report from the Brooklyn entity. And the other question was, you mentioned that New York is opposed to this. Are they passing the same resolutions along the Bay Shore as we are?
I'm not sure on the number, but I know there is an effort by Surfrider, 350 Brooklyn, Sane Energy to get resolutions passed. I attended one public hearing for the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. There were over 150 people there, all opposed. I think only 4 people spoke in favor of the project. There was a second hearing at the Rockaways, which I did not attend, but I heard that was even more well attended. They're also very upset about this because it does pass Staten Island, who also was overlooked and did not get a public hearing, despite our efforts to get them one. So it's happening on both sides where there is large public outrage about this. Communities that are going to be directly impacted have not been given their opportunity to have their voice heard, but there is opposition, and we're confident that based on the law and the facts we have in front of us, that the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection will deny this, as will the New York Department of Environmental Conservation.
Thank you.
Anyone else have further questions on the dais?
I answered my own question.
Anyone
I was
else?
gonna ask if Jermaine Williams had signed on, but.
Does anyone from the public have any further questions? Yes.
Kathleen McNamara, 162 Broadway. I want to say I'm really happy that I'm here to hear this. I think it's really important. I had gone to a number of meetings in Middlesex, and that was more with the compressors. And I had no idea that there was not a lot going on in the Bayshore area. I think I had sent an email to all of you. I knew about Hazlet. And I just think it's really important. I mean, the information that's out there about the Superfund sites and the toxins in the water, just that alone just terrifies me. You know, we all live here because we want to be by the water. We want to enjoy it. So I encourage you also to pass or approve whatever you have to do the resolution. I think it's, I know it would be nice to have more time to kind of delve into it. But as somebody who's been following it for, close to 2 years, I can assure you that if you saw half of what I saw, you wouldn't hesitate, so, thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Have a motion to close the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So with that said, is there any commentary from the dais before we decide what we're gonna do?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I just wanted to just clarify for the public some of the, and thank council for clarifying, and also Mr. Lane for clarifying some of the issues that Mr. Kelsey brought up. I would argue that we are not, as a dais, opposed to incorporating green initiatives into the building of the borough. Past is the past, let's work from the future, let's start from now. But to sort of conflate that into the argument as to why we're opposed to this pipeline being installed, it's sort of like, so I guess using a silly term, it's syllogistic. It's not really a good basis. What they're going to do is they're going to dig deeper than we would ever dig when we dredge our own canals and our own waterways, and they're going to do so in a way that's going to absolutely disrupt all of the progress that we've made as a collective citizenry along the Bay Shore and along the Raritan Bay, in cleaning the bay and making it, bringing it back to life, as Mr. Lane put it so eloquently. There's so much other anecdotal evidence that what we are doing is working, and what they are proposing to do will just set us back decades as far as how far we've come. So, with respect, I agree with part of what you said, Mr. Kelsey, and I disagree with the logic behind why we should vote, but I disagree with the logic of why we should vote no to this.
I never suggested that.
Okay, I apologize for implying that if that's not what you suggested. I think you were asking for more consistency, and you and I agree on that. And I thank you for your commentary on that. Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
With respect to dredging, I think one of the reasons why we're doing a harbor master plan and reaching out to academics at Monmouth University and the Baykeepers to make sure that when we do activities on the harbor, dredging, figuring out where we should be adding boat docks, figuring out what we have to repair, I think that the idea is to do it right and to do it safely. And that's my goal, at least for my service on the Harbor Commission. I think that I share that goal with the rest of the Harbor Commission. So with respect to dredging, I don't think anybody's going to argue that we don't need to dredge the harbor. I do think that everybody is on board with figuring out the proper way to do so, and also the proper way to pay for it. And that's all I have to say.
And hold public hearings about it.
Yes, absolutely.
If we have to.
Anyone else on the dais? So if we wanted to move forward this, I would need someone to motion for resolution 158-19.
I make a motion to approve resolution 158-19.
Second.
We had to open it to the public, but not to approve it. So we have a roll call.
Councilman Sheridan?
Yes.
Councilman Cooper?
Yes.
Councilman Good?
Yes.
Councilman Pacheco?
Yes, but I want to express my extreme disappointment that we were not given an opportunity by the DAP to discuss this as a Bayshore community. On the record.
Absolutely, and we're still gonna send a resolution
Yeah.
saying that we want a public hearing just in case they change their mind.
They're gonna get a double whammy?
Yeah.
I didn't pull it.
There you go.
I'm not pulling the resolution to send that.
Councilman Patopoulos?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDermott?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Opal. Thank you, Mr. Gallo.
So we're still on new business.
Any other new business? Unfinished business? attorney's report?
Nothing to report.
Have a motion open to the public comment?
Second.
All in favor? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Mr. Graham?
Elmer Graham Jr., 22 St. Peter's Place. I've noticed tonight, we had, there's been an interesting and informative discussion about the Borough Council and stuff like that. What I'm getting at is, not enough of the public is seeing it. I'm a big advocate of open government and all that, let the sunshine in and stuff like that. I don't know I know I brought this up last meeting, but how are we doing as far as opening up the public, opening up the hearings, putting the hearings on television and on the internet?
We are looking at video equipment now to see how we can accomplish
You
that.
told me that.
And once I get word back from it's being done for that.
That'd be nice to see it on Channel 15 or see it on the internet and stuff like that,
Understood.
Okay, and as far as the budget goes, when can we soon see, once it's approved, when can we soon see a draft budget on the internet?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
The draft, yes.
And the public could just access the internet and look at it and stuff. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Chief?
Hello, everybody. I'm John, Department Chief of the Keyport Fire Department. I just want to thank the mayor and council for their support for the parade. And Matt Good for the last three years supporting the fire department, fire commission. You paid me to say that.
I was gonna say, where's this going?
I got no idea what I was doing. But I'd like to thank everybody on the dais, especially Steve Gallo for his support. The parade was a big success for Keyport, a lot of good feedback. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported the parade and the Keyport Fire Department. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, ma'am?
Inge Westphal, H. Louis Avenue. I have a question regarding communication by consent number 11 regarding the informational packet for the mosquito control. Is there a way to get that package to look at it? Because I have the problem in my backyard, great mosquito is growing. And even now it's, oh.
If you'd like to review it right in the book in front of you, the binder.
Oh, okay. Because the lake is growing and even water is standing constantly in the yard. So, and mosquito control told me they cannot spray there because it's too close to the houses, so they can't spray from the air. I argue with them every year, and I ask them to come in around this time where they really can see the problem, not in the summer when the bushes are covering. But by now, a couple of the trees are dying already because they're sitting in water constantly.
They won't visit you?
They come when I'm not there and they leave a note, and what they check is if I have flower pots standing upright or something like that. And I told them not to come in May, to come early in April to see the problem, because otherwise the reeds are there and so forth, it's hard to see. And even the lawns now, it's not my property in the end, but the water is standing in there for days and days and days, and the mosquitoes of course love to breed in there. And it's, it's close to the playground. Last year it was already bad, and this year it will be worse if nothing is taken care of. Maybe the fire department can pump it out one time, because it can't run off anymore, because they closed it up.
Mr. Gallo, did the engineer have a chance to go over and look at it?
Yeah, he looked at it, but, you have to decide, I guess, who the property really belongs to, where the runoff was, if it was still township, that little end, if it's Silvestri, or who.
The borough engineer did have an opportunity to review the property. I'm waiting for a report from him. He did indicate that there are significant drainage issues, and it does appear that the drainage works that previously functioned to drain this area seem to be compromised, so he's looking into that as well.
So is that borough drainage or private?
It's all private. It's all private.
Oh, it's all private, okay. Only the top
The
belongs to
slope,
the
the hill,
township.
your property doesn't belong to us.
And the hill there where, before the playground, where Joe cut down all the trees and the bushes and the
I don't
garbage is
believe
there.
that's our property.
So then actually the marina would have to clean that up.
If it needs to be cleaned, sure.
You know, there's a lot of garbage hanging around there. And people that are at the playground, they just.
Would it be possible for the borough engineer to go and do another site visit with our newly appointed property maintenance?
Sure.
That maybe we need to.
We'll look into it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll see for that. Thank you.
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peters. We did want to discuss the redactions of the closed session minutes, but I think some of the comments made by Mr. Opel earlier cleared some things up. I do think the redactions were far more than necessary, or perhaps the closed session minutes are too concise. There's nothing there for me to tell what exactly the topic of discussion is. The closed session resolutions are deficient. They don't describe very much, if anything at all, what the closed sessions are about. As far as the first aid discussion, that was not appropriate for a closed session discussion. There's nothing in the minutes to indicate that that anything about litigation was discussed, especially what is required to invoke that exception. And I find it concerning. I would like to hear some commentary about why the resolutions are so deficient, why they don't mention when the discussions conducted will be disclosed to the public in the resolution as required by law. I would like to know why some of the closed session resolutions don't specify the exception. I know Mr. Opal had specified that the redactions on the minutes for Mystic at Keyport were partially due to potential litigation. However, that exception was never referenced in the resolution.
The resolution was the 10:4-12. It didn't give a specific, was it just that section of the OPMA? 10:4-12B, I think?
Yeah, it just says B for the January, and then for December, it does reference 5. And you did say that Mystic at Keyport did not offer any type of proposal, so I have to assume there was no demand for payment. Was there demand for payment for the easement?
No, it was a negotiation as to, an easement creates property rights.
Yeah, I understand.
So there is an agreement. There is consideration.
Right, but for exception 5, it would be about public funds, in exchange for public funds. So it would sound to me exception 7 would where this would be for negotiations, possibly.
For those type of contract negotiations, there is consideration. It's not specifically public funds, but there is, there's property rights on one side. The borough has to take on an obligation on the other side. There is a potential for both exception 5 and 7 arising out of this issue. That's why I'd advise the council with regard to Mystic at Keyport, until we have further direction on that, I advise you not to make public comment. I'll answer your questions the best I could, but just please keep in mind that in this matter, if it does lead to litigation, anything the council members say could be used as part of the record. In that
Sure.
case, so that's the only reason that my advice is what it is. The council is obviously free to speak at will, but
I think the issue with the first aid discussion should be addressed. There was nothing in the minutes that indicated any type of litigation. the case law seems to be clear to me about what qualifies for the exception to be met.
Last year, I don't know if you'll recall, there was an issue as far as using the first aid building for the reorganization. There was an American with Disabilities Act issue.
Right.
That came up. I think there was a concern at the December 5th meeting, which I might be speaking out of turn on because I was not here. My colleague was, and I discussed it with him. I guess it was last week when you sent the over request. There was a concern that issues related to that litigation would be discussed. It probably wasn't appropriate for public hearing. Looking back at the recitation of the minutes, I reviewed that. There was one issue that kind of got mixed up. So the initial request that you received was completely redacted or
Yes,
partly
100%.
redacted? 100%.
100%.
That did not involve the litigation, so it probably shouldn't have been redacted. The second portion that you got, when I looked at it again, realized that it should have been redacted. You were able to see everything that was in there. So, but with going back to the exception issue, I just think when it was discussed in closed session, when the closed session resolution went before the council, there was a concern that either issues related to prior litigation or future issues related to ADA implications for using the first aid building would come up. So that's why it was.
But all the other discussion that's in the minutes are not permitted to be discussed in closed session, along with the litigation discussion. The litigation discussion would be fine, but there was no litigation discussion.
One leads to the other. I mean, last year the decision was made.
I can only, I get this from the case law, and it says,
Can I just comment for a second? I do believe that was around the same exact time that the ruling came in from from
The U.S. Attorney.
Exactly. So I think that was part of the discussion also. Am I incorrect on that?
it's not in the minutes. So, that's
clarifying if
I
that
didn't
was
mean to
the
yell
same
at you.
time,
I didn't mean to yell at you, I apologize. It just came out very much louder than I intended.
So I just wanted to clarify, because the attorney that's here this evening was not the attorney that was here at that meeting. So I just want to clarify that this was actually because that's when the ruling came in from the Attorney General about the complaint that was made on January 1st. So there was litigation involved in some of this, because it was brought forward to the Attorney General of a complaint.
It was prior.
The U.S. Attorney.
Yes, United States
Sorry.
Attorney. Yeah.
Correct. So, that I believe is exactly when the ruling came in, that we were told that we did not make an error, but, so we needed to clarify how we were moving forward on that. So I do believe there was litigation involved.
There was prior litigation,
Yes.
but it had to do with actually the scheduling of the reorganization meeting, where it was going to be, and it was related to that litigation issue.
Right, but until the litigation ruling came in, we couldn't move forward with where we were going to have it. So, and because of the grant not coming forward. So it was contingent, a lot of the things were contingent on that litigation.
The contingency on the litigation does not allow you to discuss what you discussed in closed session.
It was strategy going forward.
That was not, that is not what's in the minutes. Whatever's in the minutes should have been in public session.
Was in the minutes saying that there was discussion as to the fact that the reorganization meeting was not going to be held at the first aid building?
Yes.
I have a question for the attorney.
I want to know what was actually redacted.
Councilman Fotopoulos has a question. Obviously, I've stopped the clock so that we can clarify this, because
It's
if it's
very
an error,
unclear if
we
there's a
should,
5-minute limit on public comment to me.
because there's a potential that you're bringing up as something for clarification, I am allowing the clock to go forward so that the clarification can be made and we can all move forward together. Councilman Fotopoulos?
So, we are, in matters of closed session, we are allowed to discuss items that would otherwise should be discussed in public session to get to the matter of closed session, are we not? Do you understand that question, counsel? In other words, I don't know what the objection to discussing matters that should have been in open session, in closed session, is if we reveal at some point what was in those matters.
So, when the resolution's on the agenda for closed session.
Yep.
It is, and we mentioned, so I have December 4th, I guess this is the minutes. And the way it read was, council had a closed session to discuss the improvements we made, the first aid building implemented by the borough. That's what the title of the closed session. We can't then talk about the budget or some
No,
other
that I
issues.
understand.
So, to that extent, yes, it has to be limited to the topic at hand. I think it's probably difficult to limit everything discussed about a single matter in closed session to... So what you're saying is basically to get to the point of why we're having the closed session, could we discuss things that otherwise could be said in the open?
Right.
Or, yes.
Exactly.
I think that's a practical approach to the matter. I thought the minutes were, I wasn't here for the December meeting, like I said, but the January meeting, I reviewed the minutes, I thought they were reflective of the discussion, so I didn't think there was an issue.
Mr. Kelsey, I'm sorry, Joe, one more question. Is that what you're at, is that the objection that's not the objection, right? That we should be able to get to the point.
For the first aid building,
Yeah.
there, as I'm sure you're well aware, there are very specific exceptions for you to enter into closed session and to have discussions outside of public view.
And Council, Mr. Opel had said that the reason why we went in was because of potential litigation regarding that, correct?
Prior litigation and potential for future.
Right, prior.
Just because there's a potential doesn't mean you can go into closed session about it. The public body must actually be discussing its strategy, the position it will take, the strengths and weaknesses of those positions, and possible settlement. This exception cannot be used as a pretext to discuss aspects of the matter not directly related to the litigation itself. Now, I know you all don't have the minutes in front of you, but nothing in the minutes from that closed session has anything to do with those items. Can't believe I just lost it again. Oh, it's right here. The borough administrator spoke of the ADA complaint that was made regarding handicapped accessibility when the complainant became aware that the borough was planning to hold the 2018 reorganization meeting at the first aid building, which does not have handicapped accessible bathrooms. Provisions were made by placing a porta potty in the heated garage of the building. Mr. Gallo explained that the borough will be implementing improvements to the building and will be applying for grants on the first aid's behalf. Until these improvements are completed, we will be holding a reorganization meeting at the central school, which does have handicapped accessible bathrooms. None of that relates to the strategy of potential litigation.
I guess the issue becomes the actual language that's putting in. It was referencing and dealt with actually receiving letters from the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney, and dealing with the borough's response to that. So, in fact, if we were threatened, I use that as a broad term, by the U.S. Attorney, and to, if you do this again, don't, something of that effect, we will be violating the ADA. Yes, that is definitely in anticipation of litigation. That's a strategy that the borough needs. I think the problem might be the language with regard to the minutes as opposed to what actually occurred.
Well, it was discussed what was going to be done.
Strategy?
That's not, how is that a strategy?
That's it.
That's exactly what a strategy is. That's risk mitigation.
That's what we're trying to tell you.
That's risk mitigation.
That is
To actually comply with the law is risk mitigation. If I have a broken sidewalk, I mean, there's potential for litigation if somebody breaks their ankle on my sidewalk. And if I go to fix it, that's not strategy.
Really? Isn't that saying, well, if you're going to sue me, I'm going to repair something? That's not saying, well, I'm making a determination whether or not I want to expend money. or just say, let's roll the dice?
Okay.
I disagree, and I find it very concerning. I also find that the deficiency in the resolution is very concerning. And I hope they are addressed, because they are very deficient.
Thank you, Mr. Kelsey. Mr. Lane?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Nuisance flooding that occurs on Beer Street all the time. I see the borough has installed some warning signs, which is great, that indicate this is a flood area subject to tidal flooding. But to make sure that we're not picking on Mr. Cummins, I think we need to install the same signs at multiple sites in the borough. You just look at how many times Fireman's Park floods and there's cars in that lot with water up to the floorboards.
There were signs added there about a year and a half ago.
Okay, then, oh, I missed those, that's great news.
There's several of them.
Okay, then you have the Mattawan Bridge Creek, the bridge at Mattawan Creek, the approach to that, and the flooding that's occurring there frequently. You've got the First Street east of the Walnut Street, and the approach to both of those bridges, which floods frequently. And I've shared with Mr. Gallo, well, mostly pictures of the Beer Street area, but a whole host. You have the American Legion Drive, and I can't count the number of times this year that cones and barricades have been put up on American Legion Drive because of the flooding there at the bend abutting the post office parking lot. You've got the Second Street flooding right abutting to the where the state did the wetland restoration to compensate for the work on Route 36. And so I think to ensure that it doesn't look like we're picking on anybody, we need to indicate the same type of warning that those areas are subject to frequent tidal flooding.
Thank you.
One other input, and I was just, I know the process for the liquor license renewal took a bit of effort. It took a lot of effort on my part, and I'll just share a couple things with you. One of the things that was mentioned was that the state ABC letter indicated shortcomings in the application. The fact is, the state ABC letter only identified 2 shortcomings, and the shortcomings were missing information. They did not identify any of the incorrect information. They don't, it's like the NJDEP, they don't dig into it in that detail. So the fact, all the effort I put into identifying all the misinformation fortunately was finally resolved. And so I was just trying to evaluate my efforts. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Lane. Mr. Raleigh?
George Wally, 54 Second Street. Mayor, my request for you and me to ride around town, I'm going to withdraw that.
Okay.
I'm going to pursue things through different avenues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our motion to close to the public. All in favor?
Do we have anything from closed session? We do not. Take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?